In what may be one of the most annoying mornings I've ever had to deal with, Russia is back on the menu. That's right. The New York Times. Lawmakers are warned that Russia is meddling to re-elect Trump. Oh, don't make me do it. I don't want to do it. I tried. I'm so sorry. This is the story the media is running with because these people are absolutely psychopaths. They are insane people who do things for insane reasons. They have no stated goals. It's like watching a giraffe play checkers, just like mashing the board with its face. There's no sane moves happening. I have no idea why they keep doing this. In 2016, they screeched as loud as possible, Russia. And for years, we had to deal with all of this Russia nonsense. And you know what? I tolerated it. And I said, hey, all right, let's see what happens. Here we are once again, the New York Times. Lawmakers have warned Russia is meddling. Oh, just stop already. You psychopaths. A classified briefing to House members is said to have angered the president, who complained that Democrats would weaponize the disclosure. And then, sure enough, it was leaked to the New York Times and is now being weaponized. What a stupid, cringeworthy, disgusting world. Now look at this. Former CIA Director John Brennan says, quote, "We are now in a full-blown national security crisis. These people are mentally ill. There is something wrong with them. This didn't work 4 years ago. It's not going to work today. Stop saying this, you absolute psychopaths." Russia, Russia, Russia. Here we go. Now I got to read this stupid story about stupid fake news. Whatever. I'm going to show you something in a second that's going to make y'all feel better. But I gotta admit, there's, sometimes you'll see me get really angry, like when journalists put out fake news. But right now it's a combination of like anger, frustration. And I gotta admit, I'm just dumbfounded that this is the smear they're going with. Stop and think for a moment. Russiagate, fake news. Ukrainegate, fake news. So Russiagate again? Are you kidding me? I can't believe it. Seriously, round 3, season 3 of the same stupid scandal. It's like these people who hate Trump have no idea what to do, and they're all just vomiting in each other's mouths. Former CIA Director John Brennan is very disturbed by a new report from the New York Times, which says last week, members of the House Intelligence Committee were warned by an aide to Acting Director of National Intelligence Joseph Maguire that Russia is actively meddling, in the 2020 campaign in order to get President Trump reelected. Quote, "We are now in a full-blown national security crisis," Brennan said. "By trying to prevent the flow of intelligence to Congress, Trump is abetting a Russian covert operation to keep him in office for Moscow's interests, not America's." Brennan served as CIA director from 2013 to 2017. They're insane. They're literally insane. Do you know that Americans don't care about this? I am not exaggerating when I say Americans don't care about this. Brennan, get it through your thick, broken skull. Adam Schiff, what are you doing? Listen, a part of me wants to believe that everything they've done, there's like a facetious conspiracy theory, I say, where it's like they must want to help Trump, right? Because every time they push stupid scandals, Trump is helped by it. His approval rating is up after the impeachment. And Gallup says that could be due to him being acquitted in the impeachment trial. Yet every single time they fail, they're just bashing their face on the table over and over again, hoping something will be different. It's what the definition of insanity, trying the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. So I would jokingly say something like, maybe they're trying to get Trump reelected. Maybe that's why they keep screaming about Russia. Listen. Even their own narrative about Russia was that not a single vote was changed. That it was something like a couple dozen accounts that reached like 100,000 or more people. They spent very little money and they had almost no impact on the election. So it's like saying, you put a 10-year-old kid in a room and say, I would like you to help get Trump elected. And it turns out the kid's from Ukraine and they're like, Ukrainians are trying to get Trump elected. And you're like, dude, it's like one person who has literally no impact on what's happening. But sure enough, they run with the narrative. So the joke is they must want to help Trump. But no, that's obviously a joke because Americans don't care about this and they're never going to care about this. So I can only imagine that these people are mentally ill and they're being voted in by people who are mentally, well, Brennan wasn't voted in. But, Adam Schiff, Pelosi, whoever else, you guys, you need to go outside and maybe like try talking to a human being. What are you doing? Are you like sitting on Twitter and just searching for Russia and then like, oh, there's some people tweeting about Russia. It must be a thing. I got here a Gallup poll. Now, I know it's just, I don't like using single pollsters. I like using aggregates. So I'll show you the aggregate in a second. Most important problem. Where? You might wonder, where are Americans' minds at? What is the most important problem to an American? I got to say, surprisingly, this shocked me. Because all of the big problems people used to be concerned about in the past few years are no longer concerns for them. Just strange. Maybe it's because Donald Trump is winning and taking care of what he said he was going to take care of. Which brings me to believe that Americans, for the most part, like Donald Trump, want him reelected. A lot of these polls are wrong. This poll could be wrong, so I don't even know. But I'll tell you, based on Gallup's poll and using their internal data compared to their internal data, I'll tell you this. Russia is fake news. It's complete garbage and nobody cares. Trump's approval rating is above water for the first time. I believe it's the first time for Gallup, at 49% approval and 48% disapproval, meaning a couple people, not a couple, but a couple percentage points are unsure. But now Trump is positive. The first thing I'm going to show you, percentage of Americans mentioning economic issues as the nation's most important problem is down to 10%. During the financial crisis in 2008, 86% said so. And we can see when Trump got elected, it was 40%. In 2016, it was or around the time he got elected. And it's fallen 10%. 10% of Americans think the economy is the nation's most important problem. 90% of the people in this country are happy with the economy. What do you think is the most important problem facing the country today? So economic problems rated around 10%, like I said, and the economy in general gets 2%. Then there's gap between rich and poor, 2%. This is for January 2020. Unemployment, 1% of the country is concerned about unemployment. Why? The numbers are better than ever. The greatest numbers in our lifetime, says Jim Cramer of CNBC. What do we have here? The federal budget and deficit, nobody cares. Taxes, nobody cares. Lack of money, nobody cares. Wages, nobody cares. Non-economic problems, 82% of the country are concerned about non-economic issues. The government and poor leadership is at 28%. Now, perhaps you're thinking, but Tim, maybe 28% of the population are concerned about Donald Trump. Now, that would be fair. If Trump's approval rating is 49% according to Gallup and 48% disapprove, then a certain amount of those people probably disapprove of Trump. Except the government poor leadership may very well be about Pelosi and Schumer and Nadler and the Democrats. And I'll tell you why. Because the economy is working and Donald Trump's aggregate approval rating on economic issues is 55.7%. 39.4% disapprove, but the spread is plus 16.3. Now, Donald Trump's aggregate approval rating is 46, the highest it's ever been, tied for the highest it's ever been. Disapproval is 50.9% with a sharp drop recently in his disapproval rating. If there are people who absolutely hate the president, but they're still going to give him credit on the economy, I think it's fair to say that when it comes to government and poor leadership, 28% of Americans are concerned about it. A decent percentage, I don't know how much, it's not about Trump, it's about the Democrats. And it's probably due to these psychotic stories. I want to point this out again, and we'll read the Russia stuff. We will. I'll read that Brennan garbage. Or actually, no, we'll read the New York Times because we'll see what they're claiming, and I'll tear this apart. But the funny thing about this whole story is how they say the classified briefing, Trump was mad because Democrats would weaponize it. And then right on cue, someone from the administration leaks the report and what Trump said to the New York Times. And absolutely, it's become weaponized by the Democrats. The fact that the media is putting this out proves it. There was a story that broke a couple days ago, an absolute piece of garbage fake news, claiming that Donald Trump offered a pardon to Julian Assange in exchange for a cover-up of Russia's involvement in the DNC hack. This was completely made up. It's remarkable how made up it was. Man, I don't even know what's going on anymore. These people have lost the plot. So I'll tell you what really happened. because a new story came out clarifying. Oh, how is it that always happens? Bombshell. Trump demanded cover up of Russia involvement in WikiLeaks and offered a pardon to Julian Assange. Never happened. Here's what really happened. A lawyer for Julian Assange said that ex-Congressman Dana Rohrabacher had a meeting with Assange and said that if he provided evidence that Russia wasn't involved, then Trump would give him a pardon or something to that effect. They then twisted that quote into Trump demanded cover up because that's that's the lie. That's the framing device. And then a day later, here comes the real news. Rohrabacher, of his own volition, said to Julian Assange, basically, if you're claiming Russia wasn't involved, then prove it, and I'll present this evidence to Trump and see if he'll give you a pardon. And nothing ever happened. How did we get from that story 3 years ago, which was already reported and everyone knew about, to a bombshell today claiming Trump demanded a cover-up? And you go on Reddit and you read this stuff, and it's just like, you know what, man? I'm going to be a bit facetious, but I sometimes wonder about why they banned Alex Jones. Because they're like, this guy's a conspiracy theorist, he's harmful, whatever. And boy, did they come after him hard. They banned him from literally everything. Meanwhile, you go on Reddit, and it's just, these people are like drool-dripping morons in the corner bashing their head on the wall who believe insane garbage, and they don't read it, but I gotta blame the press, man, I really do. So when you look at what Americans care about, poor leadership is one. I think a large portion of this is Pelosi. I do. Because there was a poll done in 2018 where half of Democrats said Pelosi needs to go. So I think a large portion that they're mad at the Democrats' failures. I mean, because even if they're mad at Trump, I'm pretty sure a lot of them are angry the Democrats have been ineffective and unable to actually do anything. And then you have people like Jeff Van Drew quitting the Democratic Party. And then you have, the fact that all these moderate Democrats ran on kitchen table issues like healthcare. And then immediately we're like, but orange man bad. So how many people are just fed up with this? The economy is great. No one cares about economic issues anymore. Life is good. Unemployment is down. They're loving it. Their bigger concern now is government poor leadership. I'm biased here, but I'm going to go ahead and say, I think for me, this absolutely does reflect my concerns right now. Life is great. Business is booming. Everyone I talk to is having a grand old time, making more money than I've ever made. The economy, good news. What am I angry about? What am I pissed off about? The Democrats. I mean, duh. It's been that way for a while, right? You get it. But look at what they've been doing. My biggest complaint has been that instead of dealing with, say, immigration, healthcare, poverty, unifying the country, they just scream as loud as they can that the orange man is bad. And they're not saying words. It's just That's all they're doing. Scowling and shrieking, tearing up papers and dancing around like chickens with their head cut off. Meanwhile, Trump's cracking jokes, having a good old time, and the economy is booming. I'm going to show you something I've been sitting on for a while. I don't know if I was going to do a video about it. This is a tweet from Andrew C. Johnston, who goes by @Datacrat. Political distribution of journalists based on their Twitter networks. From a new paper by John Holben. The modal journalist is somewhere between Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Are you kidding me? Did you see what Joe Rogan and all right, so last year I was on a podcast with Joe Rogan and Jack Dorsey, Vijay Gadde. And one of the things that came up was that in 2016, journalists on the left only follow journalists on the left, but conservative journalists follow both. It stands to reason that the data shows that is still the case. This graph you're looking at is the perfect example of how insane everyone is and why they're insane. The average Twitter user right here in the middle. And then you have the median Senate Republican. Mitt Romney, for some reason, is further right. But again, this is based on who they follow, not their personal opinions. This is significant not for Mitt Romney or for the median Republican because we know what their opinions are. This is not saying Mitt Romney is more conservative than the average Republican. Not at all. It's saying that who he follows on Twitter is more conservative. Journalist ideology. Lower equals more liberal. So over here, you can see Ocasio-Cortez follows very far left people. Bernie Sanders follows pretty far left people. And journalists follow a similar network in between them. This means, as far as I can tell, I could be wrong about this, it seems that most journalists, or the largest concentration of journalists, are following far left personalities. They're not paying attention to what's really going on. They're not listening to what conservatives have to say. That's where they are, and that's what they listen to. You're then going to find them skewing everything and producing stories like this. Why? Because that's who they're following on Twitter. They are trapped in a bubble of the fringe, but it actually makes sense. Let me tell you why. Why is the Russian narrative now reemerging? 22% of Americans are on Twitter. 20% of Twitter users, what is it? Yeah, 20% produce, is it 20? I think it's 10% of Twitter users produce 80% of the tweets. So I will say right away, the average Twitter user is just listening. Then you have around 2.2% of actual Americans producing tweets. Of that, we can split it around half because the left does have more presence on Twitter. About 1.2% is left-leaning. And about half of that is the resistance. What does that bring you to? About 0.5% of people that are tweeting about this stupid insanity. And lo and behold, when we look down at what Americans really care about, we can see the situation with Russia has an asterisk. Well, that's not a number. An asterisk, what does that mean? Gallup tells us that at less than 0.5%, percentages total more than 100 due to multiple mentions. And there you have it. Less than 0.5% of this country, according to Gallup, cares about what is happening with Russia. You want to know what's really scary and why the New York Times is complete gutter trash? Because the situation with China is blank. Nobody cares. That to me is freakish. China is doing really, really messed up stuff. I mean, come on. First of all, we got a trade war. We got tariffs. That's a problem. We got, I can't say the name of the infectious pandemic. I kid you not. I can't say it. YouTube's banned basically the mention of the word. And we have what they've done in the Uyghur camps and other horrifying atrocities, in Western China and the South China Sea. And Americans don't seem to care. That to me is terrifying. And it shows me that the media has failed. Utterly and completely failed. I think it's fair to say that conservatives are concerned about it. Tucker Carlson talks about China all the time. Why is it that China is literally engaging in espionage, cyber attacks, and targeting our country? They've been doing it for a while. They hacked Google a while back. We're uncovering that China is secretly giving money to universities and to professors, and there's corporate espionage. These are direct attacks against us. They're pressing the U.S. military and other jurisdictions in the South China Sea. They're doing horrifying things. Yet the media doesn't seem to care. They say Trump is wrong to go after China. They attacked Tom Cotton because he was concerned about the Chinese Communist Party lying about a certain pandemic. So they said it's a fringe conspiracy theory being pushed by those who view China as a threat. Why would the New York Times defend China and say they're not a threat when they're literally spying on us and stealing our intellectual property and our technology? They're literally doing. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a fact. We've been facing cyber attacks from China for the past decade. You can actually just go online and watch, simulated intrusions, because what they do is they'll take the data of the intrusion and then create a visualization of it. And nobody cares. Americans are more concerned, barely, about Russia. A country that did nothing. Not a single vote was changed. There were some Russians that were running Facebook pages, apparently, and it was promoting, left and right-wing causes, sowing discord, but it was particularly ineffective. That's the intelligence agencies themselves said this. So you know what, man? I got a bunch of stories pulled up. Some of them are funny. One's about dating in your 30s, and I think it's hilarious. There's one about ICE. The New York Times. John Brennan, these people are saying we're in a full-blown national security crisis over Russia? Are you nuts? Are you paying attention to what's being testified before the Senate? What the UK is testifying to Parliament, or however they do it in the UK, I don't know. About what's happening with the Chinese pandemic? People are freaking out. They expect us to get worse. You want to talk about a national security crisis? It's not Russia, you crazy lunatics. I don't know, man. I kind of feel, I'll give them this. I sit here and complain about China. I've made many videos about China. And sure enough, no one in this country cares either. But I think it is absolutely fair to say, based on the facts, that if you're more concerned about Russia than you are China, then you've been lied to by an inept or complicit media. In the end, Americans are mad about right now poor leadership. And if the economy is roaring and no one cares about the economy anymore, I'm pretty sure Americans aren't super concerned about Donald Trump, at least for the most part. Obviously, a lot of people hate him. But when it comes to economic issues, even the people who hate him are giving him credit. I'll leave it there. Russia, narrative, nonsense. Here we go again. I'll see you all at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out.